It wasn't in your workshop, was it?
Not far away from my workshop. Albert
Well,
Hill in Darlington. The forge in
yeah,
Albert Hill in Darlington made a lot of the structure for that, yeah.
Liverpool obviously played an important part with the offices. We got the Titanic offices. The White Star building is in Liverpool, and it's mad how all that came together.
Yeah.
The whole connection with the parts all around the world, and
I think the Liverpool bit was a bit that the iceberg hit, wasn't it?
well, yeah, that's the problem. But yeah, the ship should have gone all around the world. It should have showcased what this country had to offer, and unfortunately,
Fantastic, yeah.
it never did. But I am a bit of a fan of the Titanic. I do.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
And I like the way the story developed.
I had a stroll past. A friend of mine lives in Waterloo, and there's a really, really nice avenue facing the sea at Waterloo, and there's a couple of placards about the White Star Line. I think the owner of the White Star Line lived in one of the mansions along there.
Yeah,
really fantastic houses. Fantastic.
The captain lived on the front.
Captain, yeah.
Yeah, he lived on the front.
Captain, and further along there's a big where one of the owners lived. Yeah.
The Esme family
lived
further up, and the captain lived on the front, and so it is all connected. Liverpool and most Darlington now with the connection of the Titanic. But what
there you go. Anyway, sorry, guitars.
What have you been doing in lockdown?
Well, as you know, I do teach quite a lot. So a lot of my students have disappeared since March. A few have transferred to online lessons.
Yeah.
I have all sorts of people come to lessons, and one of them is a doctor whose husband's a doctor who was working on the COVID wards. And about 4 weeks ago, she says to me, "Oh, when are you starting your lessons again?" I said, "Oh, I'm not sure." She said, "Oh, it's very safe now. You know, the infection rate's down to 0. It's no problem now." So anyway, I started lessons the following week, and guess what?
It's kicked off again.
It's going back up, isn't it? So I'm teaching at the moment, but how long it'll last, I don't know.
It's quite difficult.
But people have been buying guitars in lockdown. I think maybe people have been a bit, I don't know, trying to cheer themselves up, had a bit of time on their hands. So they are buying guitars. So I've had a few guitars go through, which is good. What's nice is always, as you know, because we've had a bit, we go back a few years now.
Yeah.
An important thing for me isn't just like somebody's bought a guitar, so I'll ship a box out.
Yeah.
It's about producing a guitar that's really going to make their jaw drop when they see it, you know. And that's what I try and do with them all. So when they play it, it's really, you know, as good as it can get, really, you know, without paying the earth for it, you know.
Yeah, and we'll touch on a bit later on about the guitars and the playing quality of the guitars. We will touch on that, and I'm sure you'll show us a couple of examples. But take it all back to little Simon. What got you into guitars? I've never asked you this question. I've known you for a while now.
Yeah. Well, I'm the youngest of 4, so I had 2 older brothers and an older sister. So I suppose my taste in music is about 10 years before my time as well, you know. So I was brought up listening to Cream and Eric Clapton, John Mayall's Blues Breakers, Jimi Hendrix, you know. And then my eldest brother was away at college, and he'd come back with 2 or 3 of his mates. And I remember one time they came back, and one of them had a guitar. There'd never been a guitar in the house. So this guitar was there, and they were out. So I remember just messing about and strumming it a little bit. And I was about 11, I think. And that just got me thinking about it, you know, the sound. And then my second eldest brother is a really good drummer, Chris, and he was in bands, and the bands used to rehearse around our house. Anyway, I went to see his band rehearse in this primary school building they had, and I heard an old, I think it was a Framus guitar, played through probably a Selmer old valve amp.
Yeah.
And it was just wound up, and it was crunching just power chords out of it, and it just hit me right in the stomach, and it just you're both nodding because you know what I mean. It was wow, what's that? And so that memory has stayed with me. So now when I get a new student in, particularly if it's a young kid, I say, well, talk to them about the guitar. And I show them an acoustic guitar, strum a few little chords on an acoustic, and then this is an electric guitar. And gradually, they're getting interested. Then I wind it up and I start giving it some on a high, overdriven electric guitar, and they go. And then I say, right, I've got you. I've got you for life now. Yeah, so I started playing shortly after that. The guitarist I heard playing that power chord, he started teaching me, and I picked it up fairly quickly. The guitars, I mean, this is long before you two young gentlemen were born, I'm sure. The guitars when I was a kid were bloody awful guitars. They were terrible guitars. Woolworths had a range of guitars, and they were just awful quality. The action was terrible. It was like playing an X slicer. They were awful guitars. So anyway, I started getting away with it quite quickly. And then my mother brought me the guitar home. She bought off one of her friends at work, and it was in a heart case. And I opened it up, and it was a Shaftesbury Les Paul. Now this is a old Japanese brand, copy of a Gibson Les Paul, and it was in a black, Tolex case. Opened it up, it was all gold fur inside with this black Les Paul custom in it. And it was just beautiful guitar. So I started playing on that, and from about 11, 12, I was in bands, quite quickly, all sorts of different things. So yeah, it goes back a long way, and I've had a few guitars over the years, but and I've got a lot more now, of course, as you know.
A hell of a lot now.
So yeah, I've played in all sorts of different bands, from like club bands, rock and roll bands, country rock bands, big jazz, big bands. And then the last 20 years or so, I did this blues rock thing, Cream, Santana, Jimi Hendrix, and it got more and more to Jimi Hendrix. So I did a lot of that stuff up until a couple of years ago, when I think I've just slowed down a bit now, so I've not been gigging for a little while. So I've played a lot.
When you were young, obviously you joined your bands. Were you self-taught then? Did you just?
No. I'll tell you what. I don't know whether you better see this, but if you look at this, in my studio here, these are all my old teachers.
Wow.
Oh, right, okay.
There's a lot of old teachers there. There's a story to tell about all of them. Yeah, I've had a lot of teachers over the years. And so, I mean, again, it's before your time, but like when I used to learn stuff, there wasn't any computers. Imagine a world without computers. We had, I don't think even we had cassette tapes. It was LPs. And you had to learn. I was into like John McLaughlin, my Vision Orchestra at that time, And so the only way you could have a chance of listening to that was to slow it down to 16 RPM and just listen to the and try and work out what he was doing, So I did a lot of that as well, because there was nobody teaching electric guitar. The stuff I learned was more traditional, like big band stuff.
You'd have to have a lot of patience then. I mean, the comparison is that, like kids these days that are learning, or, young adults or whoever's learning, they've got the ability to just go on YouTube and, because that is literally how I learned to play, piano, guitar. Going onto YouTube.
It's still not easy though.
Play this song.
It's still not easy. And I think a lot of kids like the idea, but they don't want to put the effort in. They don't want to put the work in, and it is a long, hard road even now. Yeah, there's no shortcut apart from finding a good teacher and trying to get inspired, to want to play. But I mean, it's a real ordeal, really, learning how to play an instrument and getting good at it. And then you've got to work out how to deal with all the interesting personalities you meet when you join bands.
Well, funny you should say that, Simon, because I deal with someone on a podcast weekly that I also am in a band with. He's nice. He's
got a nice Titanic.
He's got a nice Titanic. There you go. That's nice. I like that.
No, but I agree with you on Simon with that. I think you've got to inspire from a young age. I like you. I've taught guitar for years now. It must be 15 years, and you've got to go with the kids. But it's so easy for someone to just pick up a computer and just find something now. We all had to work for it. Do you know what I used to do? I used to do exactly what you did. I used to play along with the music, the cassettes or whatever. But the cassette was always slower, like you said. So I learned to tune down to stay in the key.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I used to play along with the tapes, but I used to play to all sorts of junk. And then I kind of, what really got me into, obviously I love the Beatles and stuff like that, but AC/DC was the one that I could really just smash chords as loud as I could. And I always remember Mum and Dad say, "At least we know where he is." Because it was just like, I used to blow amps up because I used to turn them to 10 and just blow them up. Oh, I loved it. They were great days, and obviously we all teach kids, but over the years there's some kids who just were born to play guitar, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's
always a gem.
See, the kids you're talking about, it's not just kids. Sometimes you get adults coming along for lessons, and they've never had any lessons before. They're self-taught, and they don't really know very much about chords or scales. Beyond a few power chords and a few pentatonic scales, they don't know a lot of technical stuff, but they can really play. They've got a real fluent style. They can really play. The phrasing's really good. And that's really, really difficult to teach anybody anyway. You can teach people all the theory and the practical exercises, but to get them to actually play with feeling like that is very, very difficult. And so it makes you think that maybe some people have that natural ability.
When they get to a certain level, feel the music instead of robotically looking at it. Feel what's coming next before you actually physically see it on a piece of paper. And what I was singing. Do you find that with singing, Sam?
Well, I was just literally about to say about when I teach the kids at LIPA, LIPA 4-19, it's exactly the same. They don't have that emotion. I put that down to just not having lived as long as us.
Yeah.
In general. I mean, when the emotion behind the song. Recently, we've been doing some exercises in regards to finding their emotion and heartbreak, and some of these kids are only 13 and 14 and they've never had heartbreak in their life. Love someone, fell out of love, losing a loved one, so it's difficult for them to find that emotion to then apply it to the song. So again, it's difficult for those youngsters, but I think once they've lived a little bit of life in that regard, I find like it's easier to understand and how to act, because it is essentially acting while you're singing as well. I always go on about to my students and say, look, you've got to be able to act as well as sing. As you were saying, this robotic sort of play is exactly the same as singing. There's got to be that emotion behind what you're singing. I love you can be said in so many different ways, and the way that you say it can it can mean so many different things.
I've had so much heartbreak in my life. I reckon my solos would be the most emotion. The emotion in my solos, you've just never hit. You've never lived, Sam. That's all I can say.
I've got to ask Simon. Have you heard Chris play "Sweet Caroline"?
Oh, Simon, don't even go there. Don't.
Well, he's got a nice selection of guitars to choose from.
Well, he has, and we might as well go on to it. It's Cassidy guitars, and the whole, idea. I want you to kind of explain where it came from and the reason behind setting up your own guitar company.
It's a long story, really. It's going back. I've had a discussion today with a kid who's like 16, and so quite a few of my students have got to 16. They're doing grades 6, 7, and 8 by the time they'd finished their A levels. They're thinking of going to music college. And this might sound very strange, but I do have a straight talk with them about how you're going to make a living as a musician. Because I don't want to sound like Rishi Sunak here, but it's not an easy job, is it? It's not an easy road to go down.
Not at the moment.
So when I was 18, I did my A levels. I didn't do so well in my A levels, so I had a bit of time out, did a reset. I had 3 years off before I went to university. And I was having lessons off a lad in Leeds who was at the Leeds College of Music, jazz course. And he was teaching me jazz stuff. And he said, "Oh, well, have you thought about going to the Leeds College of Music?" And I thought I was quite a decent guitarist at that point. And I thought, well, no, maybe I need to do something different. So I actually went off and did a degree in psychology, completely different, thinking that I might do music at the same time alongside it. So I ended up did psychology, did a personnel management postgraduate diploma, and then worked in personnel management training, personnel human resource management as it's called now. Ended up doing a master's degree in that, and I worked for about 20 years in personnel management. I still played the guitar, but then by that time I'd had a young family and I didn't have a lot of time. I did have one of those 4-track TIAC tape recorders that you're talking about.
Yes, I bought it today.
I bought it in 1980 to record my first album on, and it's mint. It's hardly been used since. So yeah, I did a bit of that, a bit of recording stuff, but not a lot. So I did about 20 years in a reasonably well-paid job, a serious profession, working at a senior level. I worked at Northern Rock Alliance of Leicester. I actually worked for Gyrobank, Bootle based.
Oh wow, yeah.
Literally
around the corner from me, where I live.
Yeah. And then from there I went to further education college in Darlington for 10 years, and then I ended up in a big law firm up in Newcastle. But then, this is going back to about 15 years ago, my dad died. My dad he always used to come and see me at all my gigs. He was really, really proud. He was, anybody, you might have had this, Chris, anybody that came to the house, he'd get me to play the guitar for them. So he'd shout, Simon, bring your guitar down and play Alcatraz. So Alcatraz, of course, Albatross. That was his favourite tune. So I played that thousands and thousands of times, and I actually played it at my dad's funeral. He had a brilliant funeral, and I played that at his funeral. It was fantastic. But then when he went, he used to come. My dad was he was 80 when he died, 82. He used to come and see me doing Jimi Hendrix stuff in all these little bars all around the north of England, and he'd be there in his flat cap and his tweed jacket with his chest stuck out. That's my lad up there, And he'd be getting into all this Third Stone from the Sun, all this really far out Hendrix stuff, He was really, really proud. And so when he died, I had a bit of a rethink because I really didn't like the job I was doing. Now, it's a bit personal, but I went from being psychology into personnel management to try and help people develop the full potential. That was my motivation. What I ended up doing was being like a hitman. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd get a call from some director. I want him out this afternoon. I want her out this afternoon. And it wasn't me. I couldn't. I did it for a while. I couldn't really do it. So it came to the point where I decided, now this isn't what I want, and I handed me notice in. Now in a senior job like that, where you are privy to lots of confidential information, normally you'd be walked off the premises. I had 3 months notice, but I actually worked my notice because I was quite good at the job, and I continued and finished, not really knowing what I was going to do. Yeah. So I had a bit of thinking time, and then I started playing the guitar more, started teaching, started buying, selling second-hand guitars, and then buying and selling. I did have a deal with a brand of new guitars. So it was all online at that point, and so I'd started buying and selling guitars. The interesting point about the guitar behind you, Sam, I won't mention the name, but the band was called Sundance. Being Cassidy, my brother Chris on the drums in the initial lineup, 2 Cassidy brothers. Well, we could have called it Butch. Not really. Hopalong, not really. So anyway, Sundance was the name. I thought, like the sound of that. So we called it Sundance. So I was trading as Sundance guitars, buying and selling guitars on eBay and on my website, second-hand guitars, and this particular brand. And so when it came to my eldest son was in China, and he'd set a company up sourcing products for companies all around the world from China, manufactured in China. So I thought, well, maybe we should look into getting a guitar brand established. So he was sourcing the right factories to make the products that we wanted. So I put in the trademark applications, and the brand was actually going to be called Sundance because that's the name I'd used. So, being a meticulous, diligent sort of fella, I put in a trademark application to the Intellectual Property Office for Sundance under the guitars, musical instruments category. Yeah. And it takes a long time. But then I got this phone call from an intellectual property lawyer advising me that I ought to reconsider my marketing strategy.
Oh, right. Okay.
And obviously, I couldn't afford to match him with an intellectual property lawyer because I knew how much property lawyers cost were from my previous job. So basically, there was already a company that had a model that they called Sundance, which you might be aware of, Sam. Now, I know that this model appeared after my Sundance band and after my Sundance guitars, but I wasn't going to argue about it because I couldn't afford it, you know. So then I had to think, well, what should I do? What should I call it? Now, it's very difficult to come up with a name that's not been used before.
Yeah.
So I've got Axeman, which is one of the models at Rangers, and Bluesville, which, you know, again, I've got those. But for the main one, I couldn't, you know, so I ended up using Cassidy. It hadn't been used before. So I didn't really want to use my own name, but I ended up doing that. So it became Cassidy Guitars, and you can see quite a few of them behind Chris there. So that's going back to 2012. And since then, we managed to source, I think, you know, the motivation, Sam, just to go back to your initial point, was about I was teaching people, right? Guitar lessons, when people come for lessons over, in one case, I've got a student who's been coming for 12 years because he likes coming, I think, you know. I think he reached his plateau quite a while ago, but he still comes. But it's expensive, you know, every week, you know, you're paying for a guitar lesson. And then you find out about nice guitars. So whether it's a kid coming for lessons or it's not many ladies come for lessons, but if it's like a middle-aged 30, 40, 50-year-old bloke who wants to start lessons and suddenly he discovers that his really, really cheap starter guitar isn't that good, there's some limitations to it, so he fancies this, that, or the other, and he finds out about the expensive American brands, how can he possibly justify, one, he's not a very good guitarist, and two, how can he get that past the financial controller at home, £2,000 for a guitar? So the other thing was I've got when I talking about this TIAC Port Studio, I bought one in 1980 when I was in London, and they were this Sam's smiling here because he thinks what's he talking about, a 4-track tape recorder, you know, yeah. They were state of the art in 1980, Sam. They were it. That had never been possible before. Suddenly you could multi-track your guitar parts or whatever else, your vocals. So I got that in 1980. Listen to this, second hand. It cost, you know, in those days we got student grants. So at the beginning of every term, I had quite a lot of money to dispose of. So this particular term, I bought this Porter Studio, £350 second hand. A lot of money then, but it was going to be the one I was going to make my album on, you see. Shortly after that, my good lady, she treated me to a Gibson Les Paul Custom. Now, this was in 1980. It was a 1970 guitar. And it cost £350. Right, so they both cost 350 quid. They were both second hand. Fast forward to today, I have a mint condition TIAC 4-track Porter Studio. I built a flight case for it with a red velvet lining. It's absolutely mint condition. Current market value, £15.
Shut up.
What?
Gibson Les Paul Custom.
20 grand.
1970. Yeah, 4 or 5 grand. So anyway, it's part of the answer to Sam's question. How did I get into guitars? I was in a pub in Middlesbrough, and you know, a bit of a ropey place. You know, you get to play in lots of fine establishments in rock bands. You know, on the pub circuit. Hey mate, what is your Les Paul? I thought, oh Christ, now I can't go to the toilet, can I? I can't go. What do you want to know that for? So I thought, well, what's the point in taking a guitar that expensive out to gigs? You can't justify it. It's going to get damaged. It's going to get broken. It's going to get stolen. You know, what's the point? So from the student aspiring to have a nice guitar, you know, the good guitars are too expensive. From a gigging guitarist, why would you want to be taking such an expensive thing out that you might get damaged? So my guitar range was going to be not really cheap guitars, but good quality guitars people can progress to once they've started with a guitar, and also very good quality guitars that are not that expensive for people who are professional musicians or gigging musicians, you know. So it's a question of really high quality guitars for a really good value price point. And the price point is because some people turn their nose up immediately when you mention where I make these. I'm very honest about where these guitars come from. I know for a fact that many other guitar manufacturers are not honest at all about where they get them from. I've seen guitars being made in factories out there that I know are going to America, that I know are being sold as American guitars. It happens, you know. So the reason, you know, if you want to be able to combine high quality with you know, the best value for money, then that's the place to get them manufactured. If I was to manufacture them here, I wouldn't be able to sell them for the amount that I sell them for. And the whole point was to make them more accessible to people, you know. So it's basically this company might look very grand behind my website, but it's basically me and my wife, and my son helps me out with the sourcing of the products. But the guitars have got my name on it, and it's me that does everything to them. They come here and I do all the work on them. I set them up. You do have some brands with people's names on them, and that person will never touch them. They're just a front person for a big, you know, middle agency. You know, it's quite a personal thing with me. All the guitars pass through my hands. I do all the setups. I speak with the person buying the guitar, and I deal with any issues that they might have, any questions they might have later on. And hopefully, you know, 9 times out of 10, they're absolutely delighted with them.
Or if you get me, say, Simon, can you just make the action as low as possible? So you're like, oh, God.
Simon, I don't sound like Eric Clapton. What's going wrong?
let me talk to you about because we've got a few here. This Tree of Life, do you call it?
There is a Tree of Life already that isn't there?
Yeah.
I didn't want to call it Tree of Life. I thought, you know, learning the fretboard on a guitar, learning scales up and down the fretboard, I called it the Tree of Knowledge.
Ah, right, okay. Right, okay. So it's the Tree of Knowledge.
So on that guitar, Chris, you've got there that inlay is maple on a rosewood fretboard. Yeah.
Do you find that certain ones sell better than other ones?
Well, if you have a look on my website, quite a lot of them are sold out.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I need to get some more.
I'll tell you what I'll do right now is I'll show the people exactly the website itself. So there it is, the Cassidy website, which you can go and peruse at your own pleasure. So it's CassidyGuitars.co.uk/guitars, and obviously they're all there for your browsing pleasure. So you've got the Axeman, as mentioned. We've got Bluesville, and Encounter. There's tons. How many would you say you've got on the site, Simon, guitar-wise?
In models, I think there's originally there was about 24 models, I think.
So it's there's quite a good selection there for people to have a look.
Just to try and explain, the Axeman series were originally like metal style guitars, heavy metal style guitars, and I thought Axeman was the right name for that range. The Bluesville were really sort of tributes to the American guitars of the 1950s. You know, the headstocks, all the headstocks are different. These aren't clones of Fenders and Gibsons. They've all been changed. But the Bluesvilles are like the sort of guitar that somebody progressing from lessons maybe after a year or two, and they want a nice guitar that can be set up to play really nice, that's not going to cost the earth. The Bluesville ones are that. The Cassidy ones, the Encounter series, right? Originally, the Cassidys were CE, Cassidy Electric 701. The one that Chris has got is a CE 551 behind there. When I got that website, Sam, that you're looking at done a couple of years ago, it was quite an interesting exercise in branding and how you present to the world. The agency Orange Dog were very good, and so he said, well, we need to call this range something. You've got Axeman, you've got Bluesville, you know. So again, I had the problem. I had an E. The guitars were already made CE, so I had to come up with something starting with E. So I had a long list of about 50 words I could possibly use that started with E that might be applicable to a guitar. So I narrowed them down, checked whether any had been taken yet, narrowed it down further. I ended up with about 2 or 3, and one of them was Encounter. Now, it just so happened that my eldest brother, Steve, who I mentioned, whose friend brought that guitar home when I first started listening to the sound of a guitar. He spent a lot of his life out in Portugal, in Porto. He set up a language school out in Porto. Unfortunately, he died at a very early age, 63. And this drum kit that you can see behind me is actually his drum kit from Porto. When he died, I went and brought that back. It's just here as a monument to him, really. It gets played now and then. But the school that he had out there was called Encounter English. So the word I ended up with was Encounter.
Yeah.
So this range is really a tribute to my eldest brother. So that's where that came from. And then there are bases, and then there's a UK custom built range there. The custom built range I do build here. They're built from the best components from around the world. The hardware is usually Japanese. I use Goto hardware, bridges and machine heads. The pickups probably generally American Seymour Duncans generally. The pickup, the pots and everything else are CTS pots, so that they are really the very best you can get. Those guitars are a little bit more expensive. They're about £1,200-1,300, but they're really, really good.
They get a lot of traction when we did the shows when we did the fairs.
Yeah.
People looking at them. They get a lot of traction, but they all do because everyone comes up. We've done fairs a few times, and the exhibitions, and people. How can I describe it? They know what one they want to pick up as soon as they see the range. Do you know what I mean? They see all these guitars which you bring, or we all.
The thing about the guitar shows, and I haven't done one for a couple of years. They're a lot of work. You do get a few thousand people seeing the guitars, so it's good. And I sell directly. I don't sell to wholesalers or to shops, because if I did, there'd be a margin added, and the price to the customer would be higher. So I sell directly. I don't sell lots. I don't want to be selling lots, because that means I won't be able to cope with preparing lots. But when you're preparing for a guitar show, I might be taking 40 guitars, and I don't know which one somebody's going to come alongside. And what they always do, these guitarists, they come alongside and they do this.
They look at the neck as well.
I'm thinking, will you get off that? I'm just...
Hey, it looks like they're doing something else.
That was a lot. Well, that was a lot. That's a lot of work. But you don't know which one's going to, even when one of my students has maybe passed an exam, or there's a birthday or Christmas coming up, and the parents say, yeah, so-and-so's, we're going to get him a new guitar for Christmas. I really don't know which one they're going to go for. Because from seeing all the guitars, Chris, they are very visual, these guitars.
Yeah.
So I know this is the other thing. Generally speaking, the guitar shows, it's like middle-aged men like me walking around, with the AC/DC t-shirts on or whatever, Jimi Hendrix t-shirts.
In a plastic bag full of
bananas, yeah. And you get the occasion of being tagged on behind, you see. Now, because my guitars are not big brands, a lot of people just walk straight past. But the girlfriend had tug on the shirt and she'd say, look at that, because she spotted one that was really, really beautiful, a purple one or this blue one or something really beautiful. So he'd look at it, he'd look at the headstock, and he'd carry on. Because it doesn't say Gibson or Fender, So I can't, nothing I can do about that.
Those shows, though, you turn up, and I've helped you a few of them. Sam goes.
Chris keeps mentioning the fact that I must say, Chris is really, I think you might be the only one that ever asked Chris to be endorsed.
He goes.
And you're definitely the top salesman. You've sold more than my wife anyway.
Well, we have sold a few, but he says
always do well in Liverpool.
And I'm like, oh my God, there's just a pile of labels and just all these guitars. He's like, what? Put these on. Like, oh.
You know them inside out. You've been through them all with a fine-tooth comb.
It is fun work, but it's hard work because I know what you physically do to get the Guitar Suite show, and it's hard work. You're just ramming things in precisional places in the van, and it's really difficult to do. What's your favourite one?
No. That's my question.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to ask you the same question. You've got 4 guitars behind you, have you? Yeah, 4. I know the story behind every one, because we talked about as you were coming through to the conclusion of buying one. But which are your favourite 2 out of those 4?
My bass, because that's the one I use with Sam. This is the one Up All Night. Little plug there. Up All Night. Used predominantly. It's gonna go in the studio in the next few weeks, hopefully. So we're getting some new things with Up All Night. And
that's one of those dash body ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you find that heavy? It's quite a solid wood, is that, isn't it?
It is heavy, but it's got a great tone.
It's cheaper than joining the gym, isn't it?
It is. And do you know what my favourite one out of the lot? This one.
Really?
I play this one daily. It's a lovely, light little body. And do you know why? Light. You just pick it up, do something, put it down.
I thought, to be honest, Chris, I thought we were going to get a little impromptu little performance there. I thought we were going to hear. Come on.
I'll let Simon do that for us.
So what's that guitar called, Chris?
This is the Croft, isn't it?
It's the Croft, yeah. The acoustic guitars are all named after villages on the River Tees that pass Darlington. And the Croft is a little village just south of Darlington on the border with North Yorkshire. And an interesting little fact about Croft is Lewis Carroll spent a lot of his childhood in the church. His father was the rector at the church in Croft, and he grew up there. So a lot of his stories were influenced by his childhood in Croft.
There you go.
You know which two I thought you were going for, Chris? You'd go for that Winston, because I know you're a big John Winston Lennon fan.
Well, yeah, no.
You're going for that one. And that was just pure coincidence. That
the Winston one, though, as soon as you pick up that one, the weight of this is so much.
That's all solid rosewood, that one. This is one of the ones, Sam, that I haven't on left. You know, I'm going to have to get some more, because that guitar was I don't know whether you know about the CITES restrictions that were imposed about restricting timbers that were allowed to be used and transported around the world. Gibson got into a lot of trouble over rosewood. These guitars are all pre-CITES, but that guitar that you're picking up there, that back and side on it is solid Madagascan rosewood, Dalbergia Baroni. You can't get it now. It's like the most prized rosewood there is after Brazilian rosewood, which we couldn't get from a long time back. That is really absolutely top quality. I think all of the fretboards on all of the guitars that are rosewood are all the same Dalbergia Baroni on that batch.
Yeah.
Really good quality.
It plays just as good as any Martin. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I've got one. So, but electric-wise, yeah, the last 6-7 months, so I've been playing more acoustic, if I'm honest with you, and I've kind of the setup I'll plug in and I pick up an acoustic, especially in lockdown and stuff in this room, and just pick up an acoustic, saves setting things up.
Yeah.
I just pick it up and play, if you know what I mean, which I think's most important. What do you think the future holds for guitar sales? Because I know Gibson went bankrupt a couple of years ago, mass debts, and do you know the reason why I think that is? I may be wrong. I think it's because people prefer to buy the older models. They're not buying brand new guitars, are they? They're buying classics.
Well, I think you've got to ask about saturation point with the market for guitars. If they're churning out thousands of guitars every year, who's buying them all? Because they're not cheap.
They're not cheap, but as I say, if you're buying a guitar for me...
And you see, they also last a lifetime if you look after them. They're going to last a lifetime. So it's not like you're going to throw them away and get another one every year.
I was in when I went to America, and I had the Cassidy t-shirt, which I'm sporting tonight, Sam.
Hey, we love that. Simon's made up. Simon is...
I've got on. I've just got a black one on.
I'm so sorry. I've just got skin underneath this t-shirt. I can't give away it.
It's on his chest in the market, Cassidy guitar. So it's all...
I've got it shaved into my chest. Are you ready? No, I can't.
No,
PC.
When I was in America, and I was sending you pictures outside Madison Square Garden with the Cassidy t-shirt. I went in a big guitar center in New York, in Times Square, and there was just hundreds and hundreds of guitars in this place, and there was a humidified room for the acoustics, and it was about £35,000 Martin on the wall, and you could pick them up. And I sort of thought, well, I'm going to have a go with that. So I picked it up. It's the worst guitar I've ever played in my life. It's the worst guitar. It was the wood. The wood was why it was so expensive. That's all it was. But it was horrific. The action was about that far away from the string was about that far away from the neck. But then there's other things in there, and you pick them up, and But you know, I've been playing Cassidy's guitars for a long time now, and as I say, the bass, it does all our shows. It sounds great, and that's the way forward. So, sales-wise, I think you're competing with the big stores, but quality-wise, just as good as any.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I have not approached this as in a pure business sense. You know, I've not approached it as a business. I've met people at the guitar shows who are very sharp, far more astute than I am, who are probably making more money than I am. I'm sure they're making more money than I am, but I've never really approached it as a money-making exercise. You know, I need to make a little bit of money to pay for things and to pay for my time. But the satisfaction for me is, I mean, it's a small brand. I'm never going to sell loads and loads of them, but I meet a lot of interesting people. You know, like Chris has got some really nice guitars that he really loves, and that means a lot to me. And I've got lots of people, you know, Chris has got 4. People are surprised. I was talking to him yesterday about this. There's quite a few people with 3, 4, and 5 Cassidy guitars. They get one and think, wow, this is good. And they end up with, you know, they feel guilty about buying 2 or 3. I say, hang on, don't worry about it. There's quite a few.
There's 24 to collect. Like Pokemon.
Do you know what I always liked about the guitar shows when I've done them with you is someone will come up and play, and they'll have a little walk, and then they'll go and they come back again, have a little go, have a little look, and then just before you're packing up, we come back one more time and have a little go, and then that's the cruncher, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got him.
You got him. But
I'll send Chris in for the kill.
Well, that's it, and we always get a deal done. But did you know that I have a custom built guitar?
I didn't know this.
Oh, I did. Hang on, before you said, there was something I wanted to point out to your listeners. There is a certain guitar that you do brandish from time to time that I claim absolutely no responsibility for.
I don't
It's the one with the toilet seat and the Union Jack on. Is that the one?
Here it is.
Oh my
that is not a
days.
Cassidy guitar.
Look at this. And do you know what?
What makes that?
Look at
What
that.
makes it?
In fact, it was a friend of mine who made it.
Oh, you made it. It's a custom one.
Custom. It's custom. It's, yeah. It's had all the parts ripped from Cassidy guitars. It hasn't really. No, I came up with the idea. I said to him, right, I want you to build me this guitar out of this. And he was like, are you serious? And I was like, I'm always serious.
And what's the model?
What's the model? It's shit.
SH1.
That's what it's called. I was thinking it as well. Everyone was thinking of it.
So when you're up all night gigs is going on too long and you've had enough and you want to get home, what you've got to do is get Chris to go on with that. That'll clear the room out.
Yeah, well, I actually have. You obviously know I show this guitar off at exhibitional stuff, and someone did shout at me once, "That's shit." Now I don't know if you're talking about my playing or my guitar, but it does work. It's electric. It's bloody heavy though. I tell you that. It's just as heavy as that. It's heavier than that bass. It really is. Look at that. There you go.
Look at close up on that. Unbelievable.
Have you ever seen that before, Sam? Have you never seen that before?
I've never seen it. I actually thought you were joking a little bit when you said you've got a toilet seat guitar.
I knew we were going to pull that one out.
Literally.
Well, you know.
Unbelievable.
I actually did that on tonight's podcast.
All I was trying to do is to make mine look even better, you see. Thanks, Chris.
Well, yeah. I didn't want to hide it behind this one. Do you know what I mean? But we've got a competition, haven't we, Sam?
We have. We thought we'd do a little competition with Simon, obviously with Cassidy Guitars. What we want you to do, folks, is we want you to like both of our social medias, so the C Live page and also the Cassidy Guitars page as well. So if you can show that you've followed both, we'll give you an entry into win this fantastic Cassidy guitar case. Now, it is a guitar case, or are we allowing...
Heavy duty bag, they're really good quality. I have them for all mine when say if I'm just doing a small gig or anything like that. When I've got a bigger gig, I obviously go for a harder case. But these are great. They're good, solid quality, and they come with acoustic, electric, and bass, don't they, Simon?
Yeah. So whoever the winner is, if you let me know which they would like, I'll send that out to them. Electric, solid body electric guitars, acoustic guitars, dreadnought size, or bass guitars. Yeah.
Look at that, folks!
So
Fantastic.
What have you got to do again, Sam? So you got to.
So they've got to follow the C Live page on Instagram, and it'll link into Facebook as well. So that's Cassidy Guitars, and also the C Live entertainment page as well, and that'll give you one entry. But because we love you that much, if you share the post, which is going to go live in the next hour or so, if you share that competition post, should we give them an extra 5 entries? Should we say 5, Chris?
So. I think
so, 5. So you've got a possibility, 6 chances of 6 entries for winning this guitar case, which is absolutely fantastic. I think the retail price is over £40, is it, Chris and Simon? Over.
Yeah.
I think it's 60.
60. Yeah. There you go, folks. £60. So it really is.
Quality. I use them all the time. They're great.
I mean, they are gig bags, but they're the highest quality that we could get, and they really are solid. And I mean, when I was gigging, I used to take 3 guitars out, and I'd take 3 gig bags.
And the storage in there, Chris.
Everything.
Storage. There's top storage. There's even a little earphone section at the front if you want to put something in or something like that. If you want to put your earphones in while you're carrying it, they're really cool. Really cool.
So brilliant. So, like we've just said, guys, make sure you follow the C Live podcast. I'm going to put the social page up because it's easier. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But also as well on Simon's screen as well. There's cassidyguitars.co.uk. And also make sure that you're following Simon's Cassidy Guitars on Instagram and also on Facebook as well, and other means of social media as well. So on that post, make sure that you're following them. That'll go up in the next hour or so. I'll whip that one together. But we've actually got a question in on our Facebook that I've got to mention. It's from Alexander Bell. And he's saying, what's the best live gig Simon has ever played? Where was it and when? And if he can tell us the worst as well.
Ooh. Down to you, Simon. He didn't have my guitar, put it that way.
So I've had a lot of good gigs and quite a few bad ones. So it's the question of picking which one. Now, another historical fact about Darlington. One of Darlington's not so proud claims to fame is that 1967, February 1967, just as Hey Joe was in the charts, Jimi Hendrix was booked to play in a small club in Darlington Town Centre. So his manager, Chas Chandler, tried to get out of the gig because, they weren't getting paid very much and they were suddenly becoming quite famous, but no other help to it. So he came and played in Darlington. And Darlington's famous for all sorts of things, but one thing I'm not particularly proud of is that somebody stole one of his guitars on that night. So this was in the Imperial Hotel, in the ballroom upstairs, which is now, it's a block of offices, but in the bar downstairs, which is still there, his guitar went missing, and it's never appeared. I've been looking for it for quite a few years. I've been sort of told who took it and where it was taken on the night, and even somebody gave me a map of where it was taken and how it was taken out of the building. But I've done a few gigs in that building on certain anniversaries. And the strangest gig I did was it's the Imperial Hotel, and it's always it's quite atmospheric playing there. But this particular night, you'll know, Sam, being a technical guy, I can see you are, we had all sorts of technical problems. We had a video camera set up, sound set up. The camera didn't work, the sound recorder didn't work. My pedals kept going off. I had a radio thing from a guitar, that stopped working. All sorts of technical problems. And then halfway through, I said to somebody about, something strange is happening here. He said, yeah. He said, I've been getting somebody pulling the back of my hair all night.
It's turned into paranormal activities.
And then later on, somebody else told me he had his hair pulled. And I thought, this is odd. And then somebody else said he thought he saw a spirit stood next to me on stage. So it was a great, once we got everything going, it was a really, really good gig, but weird, strange. Now, very, very sadly, I didn't know what to make of this. Very sadly, I found out that one of my students had died that night.
Whoa.
And this is a young man, I'm sure his parents won't mind me mentioning,
Yeah.
Jamie Davis.
Blimey.
If I can get that on the camera.
Yeah.
Jamie Davis.
Wow.
He tragically died. He had meningitis, rushed into hospital, never recovered consciousness, and died that night. So I thought, that's odd. And then it turned out that the lad who I'd never met before, who was having his hair pulled, was called Jamie Davis.
What?
Yeah. So it seems strange to me that he died. He was rushed off to Newcastle, RVI, I think, but he died when we were playing. And I can't help but think that somehow he was passing through to his mother's or whatever. Anyway, he was 15 years old, the lad. Terrible. If you look on my website, if you look in the videos, there's a guitar I donated towards the fundraising activity. His mother was it was a meningitis trust. There's a video called Blues for Jamie, and it's me playing the guitar that I donated that raised money for this charity. And on the video, I'm playing this just 12-bar blues thing. There's videos of Jamie in my studio here, attending lessons and workshops. You know, so that was a funny one. That was a funny, weird gig. Very good. In terms of bad ones, yeah. Well, I've only ever been paid off once. I mean, I have emptied a few rooms out because of the volume we used to play at, but never had any trouble being paid off. But this is another funny story. The drummer that I used to play with, Martin, he did fancy himself as a bit of a ladies' man, you know. He was always in with the ladies wherever we went. And he got us this gig in a place in Thornaby. I can't remember the name of the pub. It was the Duke of Marlborough or something like that in Thornaby. I'd never played there before. So he was quite chuffed he'd got this gig. You know, anyway, we went for this gig. And it ended up a bit like, it looked a bit like the horse and jockey from that Shameless set. You know, we got there and there was glass everywhere, all over the car park. Some quite rough-looking blokes stood outside, you know.
Yeah.
I thought, oh dear, what have we got here? Anyway, we went in, and it was quite a tidy little concert room down the side of this pub. So we got set up, and, you know, Paul, the bass player at the time, he just wheeled his bass cabinet in and then went and started drinking. He used to drink a lot, which wasn't very good. He leave us to set the gear up. So there we were. We were setting all this gear up, and Paul says, "Oh, here, Simon, come on, you've got to come and see this." I said, "Look, Paul, we're busy. We've got to get all this gear set up. It's all right for you with your bloody bass cab and an amp. No, you've got to come and see this." Anyway, we went in, and there was this big poster that the pub had made. I'd sent ours through, but they just put their own up, and it said, "Not to be missed, Sundance," the name of our band.
Yeah.
And we were playing Jimi Hendrix psychedelic rock. Not to be missed, Sundance, playing classic 60s and 70s soul and Tamla Motown.
Oh, that is the worst nightmare.
So I looked around, and the pub was like tattoos and earrings and black eyes, and, you know.
Okay.
I thought, oh Christ. So the Jew pointed out at 9 o'clock, they all came in with a pints of lager, sat there.
And then it kicked off.
And then we started playing whatever, you know, Foxy Lady or whatever, and they couldn't make any sense of it. So by the half time, I think there was 2 people in there who were off their heads and thought we were absolutely amazing. They were really into it, thought it was fantastic. But because a lot of people left, this friend of our drummers suddenly decided, no, pay him off. So we got paid.
Wow.
And that's probably the worst gig.
Chris,
but I've got lots of stories I can tell you. We had time, but I'll stop there on that one.
You've got one, haven't you, Chris? You keep mentioning it on the podcast. One
Oh.
little certain inflatable guitar being thrown in your face.
We played a gig once, and there was a fella so drunk they took him outside, and an ambulance came. You could see the flashing lights through the glass window, like frosted glass, and the whole pub went outside to watch.
Right.
And we were to no one. There was even the bar staff went outside to watch this fella in ambulance, and we were literally playing through an empty venue. And then they all came back in, and the lads were saying, "What do we do?" And I said, "Just keep playing, because we can go home early."
Exactly.
It's so stuck late.
Right.
That was
Well,
cool.
folks, we've been going for nearly an hour, which has been fantastic. And it's been great to listen to your story, Simon, about how you've got Cassidy Guitars up and running from day dot all the way up to now. And you've had a little bit of an influx in sales over the last couple of weeks. I believe Chris was saying you had 9 or 10 sales of guitars, which is fantastic.
See that doesn't sound a lot, does it?
No, but
and it's not a lot to a big shop. But you see, I don't have guitars in boxes ready to post out. These guitars are pretty well taken apart before they're posted out. So there's probably at least 5 hours work on each guitar, doing the setup, getting the frets and everything sorted out. I might need a bit longer on that toilet seat to get that sorted.
This is the guitar of 2020.
Literally.
This is the guitar of 2020. So if you're looking for a historic guitar to celebrate 2020, I'll let you have this design if you want to go for it. Okay.
We could do it as a tribute for you, Chris. Chris Vance, SH1T.
It needs to be made.
On that bombshell.
Literally on that bombshell. I always say that as well at the end of the podcast. On that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into the C Live podcast this week. As always, please do follow us on social media. That is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On Facebook, we are at C Live. On Twitter, we are at C Live Enter 1. And on Instagram, we are at C Live. And don't forget, if you want to be in a chance to win that fantastic gig bag, which Chris is going to beautifully model now for us. Look at that, beautiful. Retail price is over £60, courtesy of Cassidy Guitars. All you have to do is like, share our Facebook pages, our Instagram pages, so that's Cassidy Guitars, and also C Live Facebook pages and Instagram pages. And then if you share it to your story as well, that is an extra 5 entries as well. So the possibility of 6 entries.
Get sharing.
So if you share, you get 6 entries and you've got a chance to win that fantastic prize. Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Chris, you've enjoyed that one?
I did. I'm rolling on 2021. When we can buy more guitars and we can get more guitars and we can play them live.
You need to start thinking of the 2021 design.
Well, I've got a few designs in my head. A themed guitar might be the inspiration for the next one. Okay. Part sourced from Darlington, of course.
Or as always. Guys, thank you so much again. Please make sure you do follow all of our social medias. We'll see you next week for another edition of the C Live podcast. Stay safe out there. Bye.